It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccerphiles Canada. Welcome to Series 30, looking at the players of the 2025 Gold Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Haiti. Part 2, the selection. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccerphiles Canada. I'm Kevin, and we continue our coverage of Series 30 on the players of the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup. This episode is the second part of our coverage of Haiti's players. The final roster is released, and we're looking at Haiti's selections. In part one, we compiled a list of players and their likelihood of reaching the final squad. That was based mostly on their participation since the last Gold Cup, but we considered a few other factors as well. And we also gave some biographical and career information on the main players. In part two here, our focus is the final squad. The media cast here is divided into three sections. Section one is some preliminary information on the team. We are repeating some of what we said in part one. We kind of want to build an interesting narrative here. So we're doing that to create a framework for the summaries of the positions in section two. Section two is the main part of our media cast. We review the list that we compiled in part one. We're going to tell you who made it, not only to the final squad, but to the preliminary squad. We also tried to predict starters. And to do that, we're examining each position who has played in the role since the last Gold Cup. So we'll also look at the lineups for the warm-up games just before the Cup here to see if they give us any clues. And in section three, we will summarize. We'll review surprise selections and non-selections, as well as any new players, and give updates on injuries. And we are also going to have a revised version of our Spotlight review. That's a rundown of our predictions of who we think will be starters. Okay, let's jump right in to section one. So this is just some team information, and we'll first talk about the squad. In part one, we actually did start with some big names who are off the squad, but we won't repeat that here. What we will say is that Haiti chose a squad of 25 players and a preliminary squad of 42 players. So they were allowed to bring 26 players to the tournament. We do have a guess as to what happened to that one player, but they have a roster of just 25. And Haiti selected a preliminary squad there of 42 players, so that means they had to cut 17 to create the final squad. Okay, let us go to recent games. So in part one, we looked at the games over the period since the 2023 Gold Cup. And we're going to review that here. At the beginning of section two, we also looked at the managerial situation, kind of a summary of that. And here we're going to kind of combine those two because it sets up a framework for better understanding the position summaries when we get to the end of each position in part two. So reviewing formations also helps a little bit with that, but we're going to go much faster through this than we did in part one. So we start actually with an interim manager for Haiti just before the Cup. So in May of 2023, Gabriel Calderon Pellegrino came in as an interim manager. He's going to be there for about a year, though. He led them through the Gold Cup in June of 2023. That was 3 games. And through the Nations League group stage in September and October of 2024. That was 4 games in September and October. They had 1 friendly. So no games in November 2023 and just a friendly in March of 2024. It was after that that the new manager came in and Sebastien Mignet became manager, and his first set of games was the 2026 World Cup qualifying. That's the beginning of qualifying for CONCACAF in June of 2024. And then in the fall of 2024, they played not 4, but 6 Nations League group stage games. So they ran from September to November 2024. Once again, they had no duties in March 2025, so they just played a single friendly, just like the year before. And then the warm-up games for this tournament was the 2026 World Cup qualifying games, the second set of games there, and that was just recently in June of 2025. So there we have both the kind of manager situation and the games that we're considering over this period. We also consider formations over the period, and we're not going to go through that in detail. We'll just do our kind of analysis and say that more than half of the games, 9 out of 16, were 4-4-2 formation. So that is kind of their preferred formation. They only use 2 others, actually, a 4-2-1-3. Sorry, make that a 4-2-3-1 in 5 of the games, or 31%, and a 4-3-3 in just 2 of the games. So we have always a 4-man backline there. So always 2 central defenders with a left back and a right back, and then 2 forwards a little more than half of the time. So they prefer, it seems, to have 2 forwards. Looking at the most recent warm-up games, which is not included in that analysis, we see a 4-3-3 formation in both of those games. So I don't know if that's what they'll favor going into the Cup, but we're going to come back to those games shortly here and tell you. We're doing that right now, as a matter of fact. So there are 2 warm-up games, which might give us insight into the starting lineup. Was a 5-0 win over Aruba in an away game. That was on June 7th. And then, a bit of a nasty game here against Curaçao. They lost 5-1 at home. So a bit of discouragement before the Cup there. A heavy loss to Curaçao, and I believe that makes them finish second in their group, which I believe will advance them nevertheless to the next round. But not a great result going into the Cup. However, we're not interested in the result, we're interested in the lineups. So we'll take a look at that at the end of each section. It is time to move on to section 2 and our look at the candidates. So again, we took a close look at the managerial situation in part 1. In part 2 here, we're just going to consider who made the squad as far as the manager goes. So, that was put a bit strangely. Anyway, Sebastien Mignet is still the manager. He didn't get fired shortly before the Cup. Like the manager before the 2023 Gold Cup, I might say. So Sebastien Mignet, we will consider having made the squad there. Okay, let's go on to goalkeepers. And we had as a definite candidate Alexander Pierre, and he did make the final squad there. And we had 2 likely candidates in Johnny Placide and Garrison Innocent. Both of those made the final squad, so things going very much as expected there. That means possible candidate Valendi Odelas didn't make the squad. He made the preliminary squad, but not the final squad. And seemingly off the squad, Josu de Verge did make the preliminary squad, so is not completely out of the picture. But both of those players, just the preliminary squad. All right, no new players to talk about there. So let's talk about the goalkeeper position over the period. Alexander Pierre was a starter in the 2023 Gold Cup. In the fall, veteran Johnny Placide returned to the squad. He had seemed almost off the squad, actually, not part of the last 2 Gold Cups, and playing only 3 games over the previous 2 years. But Placide immediately assumed a starting position and played all of the games in the fall 2023 Nations League group stage and the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers. as well as 4 of the 6 games in the 2024 Nations League. So kind of resting back his starting position there. Pierre was the backup keeper, Alexander Pierre. He started the only 2 friendlies that they played and the other 2 fall 2024 Nations League games. He did sub out of one of those games, so Gareth's own Innocent did get 25 minutes of field time, but clearly seems to be the third. So after part 1, we couldn't define, or we didn't define a definite starter. What are we talking about? Well, Johnny Placide. Anyway, let's go to the warm-up games, because that really cements it. We probably should have put Johnny Placide as the definite starter there. Maybe we were being a bit too cautious, but Johnny Placide did start both of the warm-up games, so now we will consider him a definite starter. And we consider Alexander Pierre the first backup there. That is pretty clear, and that is it for goalkeepers. So we move on to defense, and we do not have a versatile defender, so we go straight to central defenders, and there we had a definite candidate in Ricardo Ade, and he was selected for the squad. We had 2 likely candidates, Jean-Kevin Duvernay and Francois Dulis. Both of those were selected for the final squad also. So things going quite predictably for Haiti here. We had a possible candidate in Garvin Metusala, and he too was selected for the squad. And then we had 2 players seemingly off the squad. Jerome Mishak, he did not make even the preliminary squad, but Stephen Seance did at least make the preliminary squad. So that leaves us with just 4 central defenders. Usually we expect 5 or 6, so we're going to expect maybe a couple of out-of-position players to fill in if necessary here. Let's look at a summary of the position over the period. It was in the Gold Cup, Ricardo Ade and our possible candidate Garvin Metusala starting all 3 games of the 2023 Gold Cup. The 2 continued into the September games of the 2023 Nations League group stage, but Michak Jerome came in and played his last 2 games, what turned out to be his last 2 games for the national team. After that, Jean-Kevin Duvernay became Ade's partner for the 2024 June World Cup qualifiers and for the first of the 2024 Nations League group stage games in September. But things became a bit unsettled after that, with Duvernay injured and Metusala returning for the October games. So both Duvernay and Metusala were fit for the November games, but neither of them were called up. And Francois Dulis came in as Ade's partner for the November games. So it was Duvernay and Ade for the March 2025 friendlies. Yeah, so a bit unsettled at the end there. Let's see if the recent games give us any insight. And in both of those games, actually, we do have a Ade partnered with Duvernay. So that kind of strengthens our confidence in Duvernay there. So we always consider Ricardo Ade a definite starter. We're going to say likely starter Jean-Kevin Duvernay, and possible starters Metusala and Francois Dulis, and they'd probably be the backups as well, or whoever doesn't start. Let us go then to left backs here, and we had a definite candidate here in Luc Ducroix. The fact that his name in grey tells us he does not have any tournament experience. Nevertheless, he was a definite candidate, and he was selected for the squad. And likely candidate Martin Experience, also selected for the squad. We only had one other candidate, that was Alex Christian, at the seemingly off the squad level. He was not selected even for the preliminary squad. So that is the two candidates for left back. Let's summarize the position over the period. So it was Alex Christian playing the position in all three games of the 2023 Gold Cup, and he also played all four of the 2023 Nations League games there in the fall. However, he did not appear for Haiti after that, and Duke Lacroix played both of the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers. He and Martin Experience each started three of the six 2024 Nations League group stage games, and they even shared the single March 2025 friendly. Experience starting that game but subbing out at 49 minutes, replaced by Lacroix. So really they seem to be sharing the position. Let's look at the recent games, the warm-up games here. In the first one against Aruba, it was Experience, and in the second game, Lacroix. So they still seem to be sharing it. So we won't nominate a definite starter there. Rather, we'll say we predict that they will be alternating in the position there, Duke Lacroix and Martin Experience. So let us see in the cup who gets the first game there. Over to the right back position, we have a definite candidate in Carlin's Arcus, and he was selected for the squad. No likely candidate or no candidate at the likely level over here, but we have two possible candidates. The first one, Stefan Lambizi, only made the preliminary squad there. Next was newcomer Wilgens Paugain, and he was selected for the final squad, so kind of taking the backup position there. We had a player seemingly off the squad, Jeppe Simonsen, and he was not selected even for the preliminary squad. So two candidates making it over here. Let's check in with the position over the recent period. So we have had Collins Arcus starting all three of the 2023 Gold Cup games, and actually he remained the main starter throughout the period. Jeppe Simonsen and central defender Steven Seance each replaced him for one of the fall 2023 Nations League group stage games, though both of those players Simonsen and Seance were off the team by March of 2024. Arcus also missed two of the six games in the fall 2024 Nations League and was replaced by Stefan Lambizi in both of those. Newcomer Wilgens Paugain, though, came in as a sub for Arcus in the last 14 minutes of the March 2025 friendly, and it seems now that was a hint that Paugain was kind of taking over the position or the backup role for the position. As far as predicting starters here, we are confident that Carlin's Arcus will be the starter there, and we had Stefan's Paugain as the backup going into part one. We thought he was more likely, but we're going to have to change that now and change it to Wilgens Paugain, the first backup. I guess it could be an out of position player, but it doesn't seem that way on this side anymore. They found their backup player for Carlin's Arcus. Okay. That completes the defense, and we go, oh no, we didn't actually check in on that position in the recent game. So let's see, we would predict Arcus starting both of those. Let's just go back there on the graphics. And it is indeed Carlin's Arcus starting both of the warm-up games there. So that strengthens our confidence that he will be the starter. And we move on to defensive midfielders. We did start with a couple of versatile midfielders. We actually kind of coded them that way in preparation for the 2023 Gold Cup. Now both of them are off the squad. The first one, big names here actually, Wild Donald Gourier, and he was not selected for the preliminary squad even, and neither was Steven Saba. So both of those players who were selected for the 2023 Gold Cup well off the team. In fact, that was the last time either of them appeared. So we go to defensive midfielders. We have no candidates at the definite level here, but two candidates at the likely level. The first is Leverton Pierre, and he was selected for the final squad. Carl Sainte, despite being a likely candidate, not selected for the final squad, just for the preliminary squad. So we have our first surprise there. The possible candidate, Brian Alceus, also selected for the preliminary squad, but not making the final squad. And then we had one player seemingly off the squad in Jimmy Alexis. Jimmy Alexis, not completely off the squad because he was selected for the preliminary squad, but didn't make the final squad. So no new candidates there either. So a bit of a surprise, leaving it a bit thin in the defensive midfield. I wonder if that's why they changed from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3 there. It looks like we'll have central midfielders mostly filling those roles. Okay, we're not going to summarize that position yet because we generally combine it with central midfielders. And let us look at the candidates in the central midfield. So we have two definite candidates here. Danley Jean-Jacques, and he did make the final squad. And also Christopher Attis, also making the final squad there. So the definite candidates making it as expected. And that's all we have there, except we do have a new candidate here. And I'll introduce him because we didn't know about him in the first one. So that is Daniel St. Fleur. And actually, we really don't know much about him. He has never appeared for the national team. He's 26 years old, and he plays for Real Hope, one of the clubs in Haiti. And again, his first, his naming to the squad, the first time his name came up to the not only preliminary squad, but the final squad there. So, wow, there we have our fourth candidate. Even with him, it's a pretty thin midfield. And because we have a 4-3-3 formation in the two warm-up games here, I think we're going to cover left midfielders and right midfielders. And I see that on the graphics last time we put the right midfielders in the wrong place, so I'll just move them to where they should be. There is no one on the list there for left midfielders, but we actually do have a couple of players on the team coded as left midfielder. That is Danny Jean, but we moved him to forward as those were his only starts during the period. And Derek Etienne, we moved to central attacking midfield as he played most of his games there during the period. So we'll meet those players later. Let's look at right midfielders and who we have. We have a possible candidate here in Michael Teo, and he was selected for the final squad there. Sorry, I said Michael Teo. What am I talking about? It is Theo Michel there, brand new to the team. I don't know if I introduced him last time. Anyway, I won't here. Seemingly off the squad, Fredler Christoph. We also have on our list, but he was not selected even for the preliminary squad. Okay, now we should have enough candidates to cover even the 4-3-3. So let's go back and summarize the position. And I will say that it's a two-man midfield, two players in 87% of the games over this period. Just recently, we have the 4-3-3 formation, which they did use twice over the period. They used it in the 2023 Nations League games, the first two games there, otherwise just at the end here. So with that in mind, let's summarize the position. So Carl Sainte was a steady starter in the first half of the period. His most steady partner was Danley Jean-Jacques, but he did partner with Brian Alceus here, and for a few games, for a couple of games over the period. And also right back, Jimmy Alexis came in for both of the games where they had a three-man midfield and for one besides. In the second half of the period, though, Sainty was replaced by Leverton Pierre, and he and Danley Jean-Jacques became the main pairing. Relative newcomer Christian Attis actually replaced Leverton Pierre for the last 3 games of the Fall 2024 Nations League group stage games. However, in March 2025 friendly, Leverton Pierre came back, and once again, it was he and Danley Jean-Jacques reunited. Okay, let's look at the recent games and see if that holds. So we do have Danley Jean-Jacques playing both of the games. He lines up as a left midfielder there. And we have Christopher Attis lining up as the right midfielder in both games. The central midfielder, however, changes. It is Danny Jean. If you remember, I said we moved him to forward because he had played all his games there. Well, here he is back in the midfield, playing more like his coded position of left midfielder, but here he's playing as centre midfielder. In the second game against Curacao, it is Leverton Pierre who we would more expect to be there. Okay, that is the situation. We're kind of covering the whole midfield here. And what are we going to predict? Well, I would say a definite starter is Danley Jean-Jacques, and then likely starter Leverton Pierre. But I'm also going to consider Christopher Attis a likely starter here. We did not have Danny Jean we would not have had him after the March games, but after the June games, now we think left midfielder Danny Jean could be a starter, but we might also see him in a more attacking position. Ooh, that's a big chunk to deal with, and we're going to move on upfield to the attacking end of the field, and we'll begin with versatile attackers here. We have one who is kind of all over the field during the period. Actually, we have 2. The first is at the definite level. It's Duckins Nazon as a definite candidate for selection, and he was selected. And we have Mikel Cantave at the likely level. He also was selected for the final squad then. He's not much of a starter, I must say. I think we had moved him actually last time to a versatile position. Anyway, both of those players making it. Nothing to summarize yet. We're going to move on to left attackers first. And here we have at the definite level Fafa Pico or Fabrice Pico. He's actually coded as a right winger, but we're going to see that Haiti doesn't really have anyone coded as a left attacker, so inevitably it's going to be someone out of position, perhaps our versatile attacker Duckins Nazon. So Fafa Pico was selected for the squad. We're going to talk a little bit about that in part 3 because there was a bit of doubt about him, but here we'll just say he was selected. We had a player seemingly off the squad, John Gyro. That was our only other candidate over here. He is coded as a left attacker, but was not selected even for the preliminary squad. But here we have a new candidate here, Ruben Providence. So Ruben Providence, new to the team. So I'll give a little biographical information on him. He is 24 years old and has been with Haiti since 2025. He has 2 caps for the national team. He may have 3 because I prepared this before knowing about the last game. Anyway, he got his first cap in March of 2025, and I believe he was on the bench for the game against Aruba and may have played a role in the game against Curacao just recently. Anyway, Ruben Providence plays for Almere City in the Netherlands. He was born in France, though, but he has played in the Netherlands, Austria, and Roma in Italy. That's a pretty good club affiliation, although he was loaned out by Roma. So he is new to the team, and maybe he will come in as the left attacker since he does seem to have a good club affiliation there. Okay, that is the candidates over here. And let's summarize the position now. Actually, this position was filled by 6 different players over the first 7 games. In the Gold Cup and in the fall 2023 Nations League games. Only versatile attacker Duckins Nazon appeared twice over those 7 games. We did see 1 appearance by Derek Etienne and Fafa Picol. Each of those also played one of the games of the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers. In the fall of 2024, though, things start to clarify a little bit. Fafa Pico took charge of the position, playing all 6 of those games. In the March 2025 friendly, however, a new player was added. Well, not a new player, but a player we hadn't seen in this position over the period. Forward Franzi Perot took up the position. He's usually a centre forward. So what are we going to say for starters? We're not bold enough to predict a definite starter there, but we're going to say a likely starter. Oh, hang on a minute. I should check the 2 games here. So the 2 recent games in June, we have Fafa Picot starting there once and Duckins Nazon starting there in the second game. So we'll stick with what we got. Fafa Pico as the likely starter, and we did have Duckins Nazon as a possible starter. And just to hedge our bets, because he played there in March, we'll put forward Franzi Piero. But I'm tempted to remove his name there. Anyway, that's the left attacking side. Let's go to the right attacking side and look at the candidates. So we have again, Fafa Pico is coded on this side, and I think he did play there during the period, but we moved him to the left because he played more on the left. Here we have a definite candidate in Lucius Dawn Deedson. Lucius Dawn Deedson, a definite candidate and selected for the squad. We only have 1 other candidate, and it's seemingly off the squad, Carnegie Antoine, and he was not selected even for the preliminary squad there. Okay, and let's talk about the position then. The right side also had a variety of players filling the role. Fafa Pico did play several times in the Gold Cup and in the early part of the period, and several other players made single appearances. Or seemingly off the squad, Carnegie Antoine did appear twice, and that included his last appearance in September of 2023. By degrees, Lucius Dawn Deedson did take control of the position, playing 5 of the last 7 games from September 2024 to March 2025. Okay, let's finish up on the right by checking the recent games, and we do have Lucius Donald Deedson starting both of those games. So, well, initially I had Lucius Donald Deedson as a likely starter, but we're going to move that to definite starter over here. I'm still not 100% because Fafa Pico could come over here. Let's say the new player Ruben Providence does start on the left. I think Fafa Pico might come over here, but we do have Lucius Dawn Deedson starting both of the games, so let's be a bit bold. Okay, we move on to central attacking midfield position, and we do have a couple of candidates, but the first one is at the possible but unlikely level. It's Derek Etienne, who I mentioned as a left midfielder who we moved. He was selected only for the preliminary squad there. There was a player who we forgot to put on the list, also at the possible but unlikely level. That's Brian Labissiere, but he didn't make even the preliminary squad. And then we did have Jonel Desiree as seemingly off the squad. He also didn't make the preliminary squad. So, yes, and let's talk about the position. because they're really not using this position that much anymore. The 4-2-3-1 was the formation used in the 2023 Gold Cup, and Derek Etienne played in that position for 2 of the 3 games, versatile midfielder Duckins Nason in the other. The position was only used twice after that. Versatile midfielder Mikel Cantave played it once, but we now see he's no, he's not off the team. He is selected. And we have central midfielder Christopher Attis playing the position in the last game in March 2025, where they actually used that formation again. However, they only used it basically once over the last year. And I guess if we have to predict starters there, we would have possible starters. Maybe Christopher Attis or Mikel Cantave. But I really don't think they're going to use the position there. Okay, let's go to the forwards. We have no players coded as secondary striker, and Haiti hasn't used that position. So we're going on to centre forwards here, and we look here. We have Haiti using 2 forwards in 56% of the game. So a lot of times it'll be 2 forwards or a little more than half of the time. But we see in the recent games a 4-3-3 formation, we consider that to be 1 forward with a left attacker and a right attacker. And we've seen that position when we did left attacker and right attacker. So in the recent games, just 1 forward. Anyway, the definite candidate, or 2 definite candidates here, we had Franci Piero, and he was selected for the final squad, and we have Danny Jean, also selected for the final squad, but we did see him actually move back into the midfield for the recent games. We have Mondi Prunier as the first likely candidate. However, a bit surprisingly, he was not named to the final squad. I personally think that I think I did see one article where he was named as being on the final squad, and that led me to think that maybe that's why they have 25 names on the squad, that they initially had 26 and he was one of them, and for some reason is not on the squad now. That's my guess, but I'm not sure. However, our second likely candidate, Joseph Belmar, was selected for the squad. We had possible but unlikely Ronaldo Damus, who impressed me in 2021, but he was possible but unlikely here and not selected even for the preliminary squad. That's too bad. And then we had 2 players seemingly off the squad. Shanider Borgalin, and he did make the preliminary squad, and Robertas Luima, who was not selected even for the final squad there. We did forget to include one player. Perhaps we were mixed up because the name is very similar to our definite candidate, Franci Piero. This is France Piero, so very similar. And I've seen him listed as France Richard Piero, possible but unlikely candidate there, and not selected even for the preliminary squad. So we only have 3 forwards here, no new names to add, and that is Piero, Danny Jean, and Joseph Belmar. But again, we have a couple of versatile attackers as well as left midfielder Danny Jean up here. Let's summarize the position. It was a single forward in the 2023 Gold Cup, played by Franci Piero. Mondi Prunier was the forward of a 4-3-3 formation for the September 2023 games, but Piero came back for the last of those games in October, and he also started both of the June 2024 World Cup qualifiers. But that was a 2-man front line, and he was partnered in those June games by Duckins Nason. Those two paired for 3 of the 6 2024 Nations League group stage games in the fall of 2024, but Danny Jean replaced Francie Piero twice. Nadzon also played the March 2025 friendly as a single forward. Okay, so we look to the games just played, the June 2025 games, and we see Piero starting in both of those games. Okay, so initially I didn't have a definite starter before looking at those games, but I think we'll move Frankie Piero to the definite starting position. But I'm going to put Duckens Nazon as a likely starter. I'm a bit surprised he didn't start either of the 2 games in June here, but I'll also be surprised if they stick with the 4-3-3. Especially given how poorly it went against Curacao there. So I do expect to see Duckens Nazon starting. And yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with Danny Jean, but we'll call him kind of a backup here. And then don't forget the versatile attacker Mikel Cantave, who did sub into 5 games over the period, so could be coming in. Okay, that brings us to the end of our look of section 2 of our look at the players. So we move on to section 3. And welcome, new listeners, to the short version of the mediacast. We're going to begin with racing through a review of what we covered mostly in section 2 of the full version. We call this our Spotlight Review. So the clock is ticking and we race through it. We begin with the manager, Sebastian Mignet. We'll consider him as having been selected for the final squad. Goalkeepers, we had definite candidate Alexander Pierre selected for the final squad, as well as our 2 likely candidates, Johnny Placide and Garrison Innocent. So no surprises there. Possible candidate Valendi Odalas and seemingly off the squad Josu Duvergier, not making the final squad, just the preliminary squad for those 2. In terms of starters for the position, we landed on Johnny Placide as the definite starter, Alexander Pierre as the first backup. Let's move on to defenders. We had a definite candidate in Ricardo Ade. He was selected. We have 2 likely candidates, Jean-Kevin Duverne and Francois Dulis, both of those selected for the final squad. And we have possible candidate Garvin Metusala, also selected for the final squad. We won't go into the players less likely than that unless there's reason to. And there isn't here. So let's go to the starters. Our predictions are Ricardo Ade as a definite starter and Jean-Kevin Duverne as the likely starter, with possible starters Garvin Metusala and Francois Dulis. We also predict a 2-man central defence here. That means we're going to have a right back and a left back. And the candidates over here, whoops, I jumped the gun here. The candidates on the left were a definite candidate Duke Lacroix, sometimes called Marcus Lacroix. He was selected for the final squad, and so was my likely candidate Martin Experience there. And what we found here, or what we predict, is that they will be alternating in the position of left back. On we go to right backs, and we have a definite candidate in Carlins Arcus, and then a possible candidate, 2 possible candidates. Stefan Lambizi, a bit surprisingly not selected, just made the preliminary squad. Instead, newcomer Wilgens Paugain was selected for the final squad. And so we think it's pretty clear over here that Carlins Arcus is the definite starter and Wilgens Paugain the first backup there. On we go to the midfield, and we start with defensive midfielders. We had no definite candidate for defensive midfield, but a likely candidate in Leverton Pierre and also Carl Sainte. Well, Leverton Pierre was selected, Carl Sainte only for the preliminary squad. That's true of our possible candidate too, Brian Alseus, just making the preliminary squad. We'll move on to the central midfield. and a couple of other positions before we predict our starters. For central midfielders, we have two definite candidates, Danley Jean-Jacques and Christopher Attis, both of those selected for the final squad. We also have a newcomer, a player added late in Daniel St. Fleur. Daniel St. Fleur, surprisingly selected to the squad. We're going to add left midfielders and right midfielders. We don't have any players coded as left midfielder. Actually, we do. We have Danny Jean, but we moved him to forward during this period because he only played as a forward. But then in the last game, he played as a central midfielder, so he's back in the midfield picture. For right midfielders, we had a possible candidate in Theo Michel, and he was selected for the final squad. Right, so that's our cast of characters, and we look to starters. Definite starter, Danley Jean-Jacques. Likely starters, Leverton Pierre or Christian Attis. And then a possible starter, left midfielder, Danny Jean. They did use a 4-3-3 formation in the 2 June games here. So we think there actually might be 3 midfielders. On we go to the attacking end of the field. Just to mention a couple of versatile attackers, we had Duckins Nazon as a definite candidate, and he was selected, and a likely candidate in Michael Cantave, not much of a starter, but always called up, and he was selected for the final squad. So we're going to see both of those names kind of at the attacking end of the field in various positions. Let's move to left attackers there. And we had a definite candidate in Fafa Picot, and he was selected for the final squad. A bit of a surprise there because we thought he might be dragged off to the Club World Cup. And we had a new candidate here too, Ruben Providence. And yes, and then first our predicted starters, we weren't confident enough to predict a definite starter, but we think Fafa Pico is a likely starter. Possible starters would be Duckins Nazon or Francie Piero. Over on the right side, we had definite candidate Lucius Don Dietzen, and that's it, really. And so for predictions, we think he will be the definite starter, Lucius Don Dietzen, but we think it's possible someone else will start. That could be Fafa Pico, because he is actually coded as a right attacker, or the versatile attacker Duckins Nazon could also start over here. Central attacking, well, they don't use that position that much. And we're just going to skip that position in this quick review and jump directly to forwards. And here we have 2 definite candidates, Francie Piero and Danny Jean, played as a forward during this period. Both of them selected for the final squad. We had likely candidate Mondi Prunier, only making the preliminary squad there. Which is a surprise. And Joseph Belmar, he was selected for the final squad. And for our predictions over here, we think Francie Piero is a definite starter, but we think it could be 2 forwards starting, and we think Duckins Nazon is actually likely to appear as a forward. Backups, Danny Jean, we're a little less confident about that now that he appeared in the midfield for the June 2025 games. Woo! That's the end of our race through our spotlight review, and we move on to other matters in section 3. This will be a review of surprises. So the first one would be Carl Sainty, the central midfielder. We had considered him a likely candidate, but he only made the preliminary squad. And Mondi Prunier, we did talk, he's a forward, and when we talked about him, we thought maybe he was a 26th player who was then left off the squad. That's just speculation from our part. But it is based on the fact that I read one article out of Haiti, which did list him in the final squad. Okay, surprise inclusions. We really don't have any beyond the new players. So let's go directly to the new players. We have Daniel St. Fleur So new that he's just coded generally as a midfielder. We don't know what kind of a midfielder. And then we have left winger Ruben Providence, who they did seem to need because they don't have anyone actually coded as a left attacker. There we go. Okay, update on injuries. I'm going to post what we said last time. There wasn't much for Haiti, actually, no injuries to consider. Our only consideration was Fafa Pico. We thought that he might be playing in the Club World Cup for Inter Miami. And there is a tag on his international page which says, and I quote, called up to national team dash cross competition. So we think presumably this refers to the conflict of club and country. And I still do worry he may be pulled out of the national team to play for Inter Miami in the Club World Cup. But seeing him on the roster here suggests the international competition is taking priority. And so it should, because FIFA should be more involved in international play than in club play, but I won't start ranting about that. Anyway, great to see Fafa Pico. Great to see Fafa Pico on the squad, and so let us put him, take him from the out of contention category and put him in the recovered from injury category. Maybe we got to change these because we're not dealing just with injuries, but there we have it, and that's the only concern for Haiti. So that brings us to the end of our look at the players of Haiti, and it is possible there will be some changes. As I said, I'm still worried that Fafa Pico will be pulled out for the Club World Cup. But what we're going to do is just before the tournament, we're going to do a last-minute update on any changes that happen between this mediacast and the start of the tournament, because there usually are a few. So stay tuned for that. We would like to thank Future Bass for the wonderful music you hear in this podcast. The title is called Alone.